He knew the world would not be the same. Few people laughed. Few people cried. Most people were silent. I remembered the line from the Hindu scripture, the Bhagavad Gita. Vishnu is trying to persuade the prince that he should do his duty, and to impress him takes on his multi-armed form and says, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." I suppose we all thought that one way or another.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to Supervillains Explored. Today is another very special video because I will be discussing what is probably the most infamous alien race in the entire Marvel universe. The green-skinned, pointy-eared, shape-shifting aliens known as the Skrulls. The Skrulls are a very notorious species of extraterrestrials who created the oldest intergalactic empire in the history of the universe, and have conducted many invasions and sieges of not only our planet, but several others in the universe. They have a strong hatred of another alien race known as the Kree, but we'll get to that eventually. In this video, I'm going to be discussing the origins of the Skrulls, some of their history and defining moments, and also list off a number of notable individual Skrulls and their respective backstories and feats. So, I haven't really done a video like this before, so it's going to be fairly long, so let's not waste any time. The Skrulls were originally created in Fantastic Four #2 in January of 1962, and were created by the dynamic duo of Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. But as I usually do in these videos, I won't go through their publication history, but rather their chronological history. The ancestors of the modern Skrulls were a harmless and scientifically driven race in the Drax system of the Andromeda Galaxy. But then they were visited by a highly advanced alien race called the Celestials. The Celestials performed countless experiments on the Skrull progenitors and split them into 3 categories. The normal Skrulls possessed the ability to evolve into beings made in the Celestials' own image. The 2 other branches were the Deviants and the Eternals. The Deviants possessed the ability to shapeshift, and the Eternals were immortal, hence their name. The Deviant and Eternal Skrulls would eventually wage war with each other, with the Deviants completely eradicating the Eternals. And so all modern Skrulls possessed the Deviant's ability to shapeshift. These Skrulls would also segregate themselves into 2 branches: the normal Skrulls and the Dire Wraiths, who were a race of parasitic genetic defects whom the Skrulls considered to be abominations and monsters who did not align with the Skrulls' image of perfection. But really the event that sort of prompted the Skrulls to reshape their culture and image into that of a warrior race began when they expanded their empire into the cluster known as the Magellanic Clouds, home to the Kree homeworld of Hala. Here they discovered not only the Kree, but another race of plant-like organisms called the Kotati, who are friends to the Kree. Now, one thing you have to know about the Skrulls, one thing you have to understand about the Skrulls, is that they have a process of determining who they will want to do trade with and who they will be friends with. You see, when the Skrulls discover a new system with more than one intelligent species occupying it, they devise a contest of sorts to decide which species is the strongest and which one will be assimilated into the Skrull Empire. The Skrulls created a special area on Earth's moon where the competition between the Kree and the Kotati would actually take place. But after many games and matches, the Skrulls judged the Kotati to be the superior species. To put it lightly, the Kree were beyond pissed off. The Kree competitors ended up murdering not only the Skrull judges, but all the Kotati competitors as well. And the Kree then proceeded to steal the Skrulls' spaceships and tech. And since this base on our moon was years away from the Skrull capital, it took decades for the rest of the Skrulls to learn about the Kree betrayal. But by the time that they learned about it, the Kree had already managed to stage an attack on the Skrulls' home system. So because the Kree had forced them into the war, the Skrulls, who were once a regal and fair race, had reshaped themselves into the savage, warlike beasts that both the Kree and human citizens would make cautionary tales about. During their war with the Kree, the Skrulls would move their capital to the planet Tarnax 4. But the Skrulls would actually discover something special about Tarnax 4. They discovered a space warp linking it to Earth. And since they feared that an entire Skrull army sent to Earth would no doubt attract the attention of the Kree, 4 Skrull scouts were sent to Earth with the mission of imitating the Fantastic Four and completely destroying their reputation. The Fantastic Four eventually cleared their name, and they also convinced the Skrull fleet to withdraw from Earth by posing as the agents and tricking the captain of the fleet to retreat. Not to mention that they disposed of the remaining Skrull agents by persuading them to transform into cows. And then Reed Richards would proceed to hypnotize them into believing that they were real cows, leaving them to eat and shit for the rest of their natural existence. Yes, I know, it's the Silver Age, okay? Just roll with it. So after this and many years of failed world domination attempts, the Skrulls would receive a massive blow to their infrastructure when everyone's favorite horned planet eater Galactus would show up and devour their throne world, alongside the Herald known as Nova, the Frankie Ray version, not Richard Rider. When this happens, the Skrull Empire is reduced to a large number of disheveled colonies. And so because of this, they decide to make a peace treaty with the Kree. But the truce between the Kree and the Skrulls also saw both species mingling together with thousands of other alien species, and also playing nice with another vast alien empire known as the Shi'ar. But the Skrull alliance with the Kree would not last, simply because at this point the Skrulls just didn't care about diplomacy at all. All they wanted to do was fight and kill. And that's exactly what they were going to do. So they incited a war with another race called the Xandarians, which ended when the Xandarian homeworld was destroyed by a supervillainess called Nebula. But another catastrophic event that happened to the Skrulls was the Annihilation Wave. When the insane negative zone-born alien warlord Annihilus began his conquest of our universe, a small division of his naval army had destroyed 90% of the Skrull colonized worlds with a doomsday weapon called the Harvester of Sorrow. With the Skrull race suffering so much devastation, first from Galactus and now the Annihilation Wave, they were in disarray. But were also united under an insane matriarch named Queen Varanki. She organized a meticulous infiltration of Earth, where many of the Earth's greatest superheroes would be impersonated by Skrull agents, in an event which would become to known as Secret Invasion. The invasion ultimately fails, and Varanki is killed. That's about as much of the Skrull history as I'd like to discuss. Now I'm going to talk about some very notable Skrull characters. The first is my all-time favorite Skrull character, Kalirt, also known as the Super-Skrull. Kalirt was a regular Skrull who was chosen by the Skrull Emperor Doric VII to become a biological weapon to use against the Fantastic Four. Kalirt was imbued with all the powers of the Fantastic Four, but was defeated time and time again. After all his defeats, he was exiled from the rest of the Skrull Empire, but he would be recruited back to fight the Kree again and again, but would fail every time, pretty much leading him to a permanent exile. Over time, Kalirt would transition from a bad guy into something of an anti-hero, since he acted as a good guy in both the Annihilation and Annihilation Conquest storylines. I love Kalirt. He's personally one of my favorite Marvel villains ever, simply because that there's really a lot more to him than just his tough, evil, cocky, and arrogant exterior. Next up is Paibok, the Power Skrull. Paibok is a Skrull lieutenant who proposed the idea of spying on the Fantastic Four by replacing Ben Grimm's girlfriend, Alicia Masters, with a Skrull spy. But when that plan fails, he assembles a team of villains that do pretty well against the Fantastic Four. Not a very memorable character, but he has his moments. And then there's Varanki. She was originally a princess from the planet of Tiaronk 7, I believe is how that's said, and was very outspoken against the Skrull King Doric VII. She was accused of being a heretic and was imprisoned, but when Galactus destroyed the throne world, the Skrulls rescued her and made her queen out of desperation. And thus she planned the invasion of Earth, and impersonated the superhero Jessica Drew, aka Spider-Woman, for many years. But eventually the Skrulls would be exposed and Varanki would be killed by Norman Osborn, who becomes something of a hero after the event. And then there's Titanus, who was a rare Skrull defect in the fact that he lacked a shape-shifting ability, so he was put into the super-skrull program and was given super strength and a healing factor. He would then travel to a planet called Trellian, where he would be brainwashed into believing that he was in love with a certain woman from Trellian, and that he was basically saving her from an oppressive government. But when he learned that all of his feelings for her were manufactured and fabricated, he killed himself by crushing his own head in his hands. Didn't know that was possible, but apparently in comic books it is. But Titanus is a very unusual character as far as the Skrulls go. Some other things to mention. There's a Skrull group known as Cadre K, a group of Skrull mutants who are originally going to be the pawns of the mutant villain known as Apocalypse. But Professor X saved them and proceeded to train them to use their powers. So they pretty much became the Skrull X-Men. The last and absolutely strangest Skrull character here that I will talk about is John the Skrull. And no, I'm not making this up. There were 4 Skrulls that impersonated the Beatles, out of all things. It turns out that these Skrulls were sent to Earth back in 1963 to disguise themselves, as the Beatles to begin an invasion of Earth. Which actually makes a lot more sense than it should. Considering that in the 60s, the Beatles were the most popular band, ever. So the leader of these Skrulls impersonated John Lennon, and he, along with all the other ones, decided that they would rather have money and power than work for the Skrulls again. And if that's not weird enough, John the Skrull actually became a member of MI-13 to combat the secret invasion. So, I think I'll stop right there, since I pretty much told you a lot of information today, especially in this one video. So, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you later.